In the first part of this build, I addressed some issues with positioning the window and framed up the two sides of the gable end wall. The next step was taking some measurements in preparation for applying the sheathing. So what I decided to do with the gable end, how I'm going to sort of work with it since I'm having a little trouble, since it's not as easy as the opposite side, is I'm going to take my template that I made when I made all my rafters. This is the part that goes up into the peak of the roof at the gable, and then right here this bird's mouth is where it lands on top of the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to make two of these that are cut off right here, and then actually I'm going to subtract an inch from this to allow for a vertical trim piece that will go down to the top of the wall. I first used the template to mark out the end of the rafter and at the bird's mouth. Then I subtracted some off of where the bird's mouth was, about an inch, to allow for a vertical piece of trim, and checked to see if it looked right. And as you're about to see, measuring, planning, and checking your piece doesn't always mean it's going to fit. Ended up just couldn't get it to fit up in there. It was just a little too long and couldn't get it between the pieces. And with a couple failed trips up and down the ladder doing some problem solving, finally got it figured out. And here it is held in place, and you can see at the bottom that's where I'm going to have a little vertical piece of trim. I used a number 8 countersink bit and pre-drove some screws in to where it make it easier to attach up in the roof. With those pieces in place, I can now figure out the trim piece that's going to go at the bottom. I ripped a 2x4 to 2 1/4 inches wide and rough cut it to size. That way I'm able to just trim off a tiny amount and sneak up on the right measurement. This is normally how I go about figuring out something when it's not really a clean measurement. I just cut it close and then shave a little off till it fits. And with the trim installed, I was now able to take those two assemblies and go ahead and start attaching them. I'm using my impact driver with screws instead of a framing pneumatic nail gun, mainly for the size of the nail gun. It's a little too big to fit in these tight spaces, and the impact driver really makes it pretty easy. After doing some quick measuring, I was able to take some 3/8 inch plywood and do some layout lines for cutting out the plywood that would be attached to the outside of the gable wall. With the trip back up the ladder, I was able to mark out where I needed to notch out for that square post sticking out supporting the rafters. Multiply those steps a couple times and I had all my plywood cut. It had gotten dark by now, so I set up a light and went up the ladder and got all those pieces attached. To finish off the top of the gable wall, I marked off the top of the window where they met on the rafters. Then I measured and cut a piece that would fit in that spot and marked the top of that. I just worked one piece at a time until I was able to end up with all 3 pieces. Once again, using the countersink bit and my impact driver, I just quickly screwed the piece together. Once I got my sheathing marked and cut out, it was, as you can imagine, just screwing it into place over top where the stained glass window mounts. One thing about all the new drills and drivers that's real handy is the LED lights that they're putting on them. In cases of working at nighttime like this, it's really a nice feature. With that part installed, I was able to slip in the window, making it one step closer to being a finished house. Well, as you can see, the wall is now done, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. For some of you out there wondering, like, what is valid in even making this video, what's the purpose of making a video even as detailed as I did on making this wall, since it's not the same wall you're going to build. I didn't so much do it as sort of like, this is a plan, this is how you do it. It's more of just to show that when you're building something like this, you're sort of constantly problem solving and just sort of building on the fly. That is, if you're not building by plans. And this whole house, I'm not using any sort of a plan. It's just a kind of a combination of a lot of different things that I liked, and I'm kind of coming up with it as I go with a general idea in my head of how I'm going to do it. So for those of you out there who are pretty good at just sort of building in general, and you don't really need a sort of a hard outlined plan, if you're thinking about doing it, I'd encourage you to go ahead and just try and get moving on something. And if you run into trouble, you can always get help from somebody that is sort of has more expertise in whatever area is giving you trouble. But other than that, I think it's looking pretty good, and we'll kind of get cleaned up and give you a pan shot of what the wall looks like, and then I'll wait till morning and come back up here and get a shot of the outside. Otherwise, I want to thank you for watching my video, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so if you'd like. Leave a comment under the video, give it a thumbs up, and visit me on Facebook. I'll have probably a couple more pictures of the wall on there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.